heat on Rupert Murdoch's conservative empire. DOJ vet Andrew Weissmann is standing by and will give us his view and analysis. He will assess a huge shot across the bow tonight. The DOJ now trying to pressure war coverage at Murdoch's Wall Street Journal. That's, of course, Fox News' sister outlet. They're using subpoenas, and the government is claiming illegal leaks to, according to many experts, abuse power to shape or stifle critical war coverage, which, of course, the country is aware of because it is partly the press and information about the war, its reality, that's made it a very unpopular war, plus the economic fallout. And I have more on that part of the story later tonight. It is a problem for Trump and the midterms. But this story is one where journalists must actually also kind of weigh how we, in this case, our colleagues at the Journal, peers, competitors, whatever you call it, but how journalists report on something that Trump has done more than any other administration since Nixon. How do we report on the government trying to make us, our reporting, or our colleagues and competitors' reporting part of the story? Well, the Journal has decided to report on unusual subpoenas that its own journalists, reporters received from the Trump DOJ, as you see here. The masthead is the Wall Street Journal. This story is about the Wall Street Journal. This is reporting about how they are reporting and being potentially intimidated or punished through this government that they're reporting on. Now, to be clear, this has been a losing revenge streak in legal moves by Trump, and you probably, if you follow the news, have heard about them. We've seen these efforts against people. James Comey was a big story. He did an interview on MS Now with Nicole just yesterday. We're also seeing it against institutions and journalism itself. That article I just put on the screen notes that the paper received grand jury subpoenas for records of its reporters covering this war. Now, this is a huge deal. This is about war, which is one of the obviously most important and grave powers a president wields. And remember, this war, which has proven so unpopular, is being waged unilaterally. The president did not work with Congress. The president did not address the nation up front or leave any time for any kind of meaningful dissent or protest. He launched a proactive attack on Iran. The strait that was once open for our energy needs is now closed. The ceasefire exists. We don't know what comes next. But I mentioned that brief war history to say that with Congress cut out of the loop and the American public cut out of the loop, one of the only other measures left is journalism reporting how the war is going and the facts about the war. And the facts have been, to put it fairly, mixed, negative. Plenty of them look bad for the Donald Trump administration, for the war planning, and obviously for the gas prices and the economy we're all living through. And against that type of accurate, or shall we say evidence-based information, this government, your government, is responding by trying to intimidate, legally stifle, and potentially jail the people doing that reporting. You know, I always try to talk to you, I'm talking through a camera, right? But I always try to talk to you directly about what we know and don't know and what's happening. This is what's happening, and we know it's a problem. We also know that our Constitution, the 250 years that we're celebrating, argues exactly against any leader, I don't care what party, who would try to rule our government and crush the First Amendment. It's the first for a reason, and crush this type of free speech. So that's why this matters. Andrew, as I mentioned, joins me shortly. I want to tell you about the methods because it's really something. Trump delivering his message on a sticky note with the word treason in Sharpie placed atop a stack of printed articles that he handed to the acting attorney general. That's how some of this got started, according to a very detailed account from CNN's reporting. Now, that official is, of course, Todd Blanche. And he's under this public pressure by Trump to take measures that, I want to be clear, might ultimately, if he takes them, see Mr. Blanche investigated, sanctioned, or disbarred. He knows, with his law degree and his experience, that if he actually is going out and pursuing baseless, false claims against journalists or others that are only designed to intimidate, to do selective prosecution, or to shape war propaganda, yeah, you can lose your law license over that. And if you look at these polls, it's not clear that Trump's friends are going to be in office forever. Trump shared a literal enemies list as well that demands that Blanche indict John Brennan, Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama. So it's someone else's post, as you see, and it's Donald J. Trump, the sitting president, who shared it, reposting that. The idea of the Trump DOJ indicting Barack Obama may sound far-fetched, even after everything. But the evidence we have shows that in his demands, Trump is serious. It was once far-fetched to think he would abuse legal powers against so many sitting lawmakers, an FBI director, a CIA director, the current Republican leading the Fed. That's already happened. I keep showing you this chart because it's a fact, and it is a problem if our country lets this become normal or memory hold like so much other civic amnesia that we have. This is our current situation. So you can't just look at the new next effort by Trump to turn up the heat on a supplicant like Blanche and say, well, he won't go to Clinton or Obama. They very well may try. Remember, this list of faces were already pursued, most of them, under an attorney general that Donald Trump just canned for not doing enough, in his view. That's why we have Blanche instead of Bondi. Now, the guardrails have still prevented any of these efforts from succeeding. Depending on how you count, he's 0 for 20 or 0 for 25, 0 and 25, but none of these cases have led to any conviction. Many of them, as you saw, have been tossed. But Trump views Blanche as his enforcer.
We have a man who's doing a great job, I'll tell you. I knew it. Because he kept me out of jail for years. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. I said the other day that some of that stuff should be looked into. They said, weaponization, he's a terrible human being, weaponization, right, Kat? They blame me for weaponization.
He is not the communicator he once was. Indeed, Donald Trump, who used to be pretty good at PR, knows that you don't just repeat the attacks on yourself. They blame me for weaponization, he says, reminding everyone that he is weaponizing the government, using a term that even the right has said is bad, because he is weaponizing the government. You can call it weaponization, you can call it lawfare. The actual term in the law when you prove that the government has gone after a person for illicit reasons rather than just investigate the facts where they lead, it's called selective prosecution. Gets your case tossed. It can get the prosecutors, of course, sanctioned, as I mentioned, which is something that Mr. Blanche should think about. It's not my job to give him legal advice, but we'll run this clip later if we have to, if Mr. Blanche ultimately not only discredits himself, but loses his law license or worse, because if he goes forward with some of these things, like going after Obama and Clinton because the president asked for it, yeah, that would look like selective prosecution without at least clear evidence to the contrary. Now, Trump is taking these legal weapons well beyond the Obamas or the Democrats that he's called out, or the critics. He is now, as I mentioned, the lead story that we're going to bring Andrew in on, going after the conservative institution of Murdoch's Wall Street Journal. Now, previously, you may recall, he sued them over their Epstein coverage and lost in the civil courts. And I want to be clear. Anyone in this country can afford themselves the civil courts, including government incumbents. So that is something he can do. He lost, so he had no case, but he can do that. But after failing, what we're seeing now, and why I mentioned it to bring us up to speed to tonight, is Trump's doubling down with this criminal probe, which is much more serious, using a criminal investigation and those kind of subpoenas for journalists, which carry the implied threat of potential jail time if you don't cooperate, and using the part of our system that is strong. When you say to the courts, well, this could be national security or this affects war, there might be illegal government leaks, that can matter. And by the way, the DOJ is allowed, of course, to pursue illegal government leaks. Usually means going after the person in government who broke the law. The journalists didn't, if they only reported something that came from the government, but they can do that. The question here is whether this is abuse of power, leaning on that type of power to silence and censor the war coverage. Now, Rupert Murdoch is a big figure. He has a complex history with Trump, but he still runs Fox News, which nowadays Trump and MAGA see as a very friendly place. But just like Putin started with the biggest opposition critics, but moved on to other people that used to be in his inner circle, Trump will go after you even if you own Fox News. Nobody is really safe if you start publishing or airing things he disagrees with. Remember, Rupert Murdoch is such a kind of big political figure. They had that whole show and character based off him in HBO's Succession. Now, this is fiction, echoing perhaps some view of reality, but they cast Murdoch as someone who was tough and willing to fight anyone.
Here's the safety briefing. If you move against me, I'll put a hole in the back.
Tough guy. That is a fictional character based on the real Murdoch, but plenty of folks said that that toughness and that style reflects the now aging patriarch of that conservative empire. What will Murdoch do next? What is the DOJ up to? I want to bring in Andrew Weissman, of course, DOJ vet, the author of the upcoming Liar's Kingdom, How to Stop Trump's Deceit and Save America. That's out this month. You can get Liar's Kingdom on pre-order now wherever books are sold. Andrew, I mentioned that while any selective prosecution is wrong, Murdoch runs American media properties that are overwhelmingly favorable to Trump in editorial, on air, and yet here they are caught up in these same tactics. What do you see?
So here's the tension. If this was an investigation into the leaking of classified information, if it was the investigation into the leaking of information that, although not classified, could endanger our soldiers and the ongoing war effort, leave aside that the president says we're not at war. That is something that can be a legitimate investigation. Sure. The problem here is that the track record of this administration is that they have a war on facts. And with Todd Blanche, as they did with Pam Bondi, they basically have a choke chain on the acting attorney general, and you see him doing the president's bidding. And so the real concern here is that this is, as you said, a way to simply continue the pressure on sort of whitewashing the stories that come out, whether we're talking about suing civilly, as you mentioned, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Kash Patel's lawsuit against The Atlantic, or the attack, as you mentioned, on Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert, or getting the FCC to threaten the media to whitewash the story here. That is a way of silencing the opposition and creating only a rosy picture. And there's nothing more important than having the truth about something as serious as a war that has not been declared by Congress, meaning that this war is not something that is constitutional, this is something that Congress would have had to declare. And the president.
And I'll jump in to say, what do you think about Murdoch here as an adversary who didn't fold in a civil case, and the Journal is being clear? I said it's their choice to publish this so people know what the administration is doing, which seems to be an early clue they don't necessarily fold here either.
So, the Wall Street Journal, whatever you think of its editorial page, it has serious journalists. And this goes to this issue of whether this is a serious news organization that would have published something that they believed was going to threaten or risk the lives of our soldiers. As you know, reputable news organizations don't do that. They think long and hard, and they usually actually consult with the government before they would run a story where they thought that was an issue. But with the Wall Street Journal, like the New York Times, like our own station, like The Atlantic, will run stories that they believe are truthful, that are sourced. And it is so important. This is getting news to the American public. Yeah. And it's the last thing that the government should be doing. This is what it means to be in government, to be responsible. Is like, you may not like being criticized. If you don't like being criticized, if you don't like people running stories about what you're doing, don't take the job.
Yeah, get out of the kitchen. Well, and you and I have discussed now years running how to handle this. What does it tell you that thus far Murdoch?
Amen. You see what cowards and people that's supposed to stand up for truth. This Elder G. You see people supposed to stand up for truth and honesty and stand up and even die for integrity. You see what happened when those kind of people become cowards? And they hid over in a corner somewhere with their tail tucked between their legs. Standing up for justice is not something that say you hate somebody. The people that's trying to destroy justice and peace and joy and love, those people are your enemies. And the reason why they your enemy, because they God's enemy too. They God's enemy. They turn their back on our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. They take our money and buy guns, and then they turn the gun on us. Can you imagine you going to Walmart tomorrow, the employees get together that's getting paid by Walmart, and Walmart gives them a job? And then they get together and come in there tomorrow with guns and take over Walmart and take everything Walmart's got? Who okay with that? What corporation wouldn't hire security guard with guns to protect their property? There is nothing greater in this country as far as laws. There's nothing here that can supersede the Constitution in America. We're not talking about God now, that's a spiritual realm. We're talking about the United States of America, which we pay the president, we pay the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marine. We pay them to make sure that they protect the Constitution at all costs. The president is the commander-in-chief of the military, that anybody that tried to mess with or tinker with the Constitution, the Constitution tells us that person must be put down. Either that person going to go to jail. You know, for treason, people used to go to the firing squad. Treason, it can send you to death. You know what treason is, right? Treason is when somebody hires you to do something and pay you a salary, and they give you the weapons and everything that you need to defend the Constitution at all costs, foreign or domestic. See, to the president, it shouldn't make no difference whether it's foreign or domestic. Anybody that try to overthrow the Constitution, they must be stopped. Not just stopped, at all costs. You can't go against the Constitution and survive. Because if you let someone override the Constitution, that means that they override you. That means that you ain't nothing. This person think that they own you and think that they your God. I don't want my children or my grandchildren or my great-grandchildren growing up in a life like that. You got to be totally ignorant to want to grow up under a dictatorship or a king. That's why you left Europe. But you don't want black and brown people to prosper. So you're going to tear down the whole system that's 250 years old. You're going to tear it all down. because you really ain't nothing. Because the Bible tell you every time somebody start thinking they something, when they really nothing. See, you don't scare black and brown people. You don't scare like that. You may scare those weak-kneed white people that you take advantage of. That they stand there in the corner with their tail tucked between their legs. But you ain't gonna scare black people like that. See, over here you got house cats and you got dogs. You know, little pets. Oh, over there where we came from, we got lions and we got tigers and we got hippopotamus and rhinoceros and giraffe and big old elephants. So we always did deal with the big cats. If you think that you're gonna scare us, when we know that God is on our side, and we know that we are the children of the Most High God, and you're gonna try to scare us just because you stomp your feet on the ground, those days are over. You living in a fantasy world. You living in a world where you think that you are God and you think that you better than other people. When you less than 10% of the world population, Caucasian people, you less than 10% of the world's population. The black and the brown people could have smashed you centuries ago. But we ain't violent like that. We believe that everybody is created equal. And being created equal ain't who you love or how much you make or how fancy your car is, how beautiful your house is sitting up on the hill. See, a God life ain't got nothing to do with that. Every time you see somebody with all that money, you know that they doing millions and millions of people wrong. You know that to fill up your pickup truck in some states is going to cost you almost $150. If you're in California, it may cost you $150 to fill up your Silverado or your Ford F-150. Now here you is, somebody that's making minimum wage, that's gonna take $150 a week just to go to work if you're like 30 minutes down the road. And when they take out taxes and everything out of your check at $725, you're going to take home about $165. So you got $15 left over out of your check. And you ain't even ate lunch. If you had a flat tire, you wouldn't be able to fix it. But one man is worth over $800 billion, getting ready to be a trillionaire. But they paying people, the majority of the people in America, minimum wage. What do you expect that a man that did everything he could? He even went to high school and he graduated. But they give him a job making $7.25 an hour. So this man want to have a family. He want a wife and he want a couple of kids. That man is working a full-time job, sometimes 2 jobs. And he never home. So his wife get tired and then she go out and find her another man because somebody else is paying her more attention than a husband, but a husband is trying to take care of the family. That prejudiced white man make that happen. Because everybody should at least have a living wage. If you ain't raised the minimum wage in 20 years, and 20 years ago a gallon of gas was $1.50, now it's over $5, in some cases over $8. But you ain't got no raise because you still stuck at the minimum wage. That's slavery. That ain't looking out for your brother or your sister. That ain't building up your brother or your sister. That's tearing them down. That's evil. The Bible tell you, the love of money is the root of all evil. Love of money. Bill Gates. He's got a yacht worth $1.5 billion. Elon Musk has got a yacht. That's just one of what he got. $700 million. Michael Jordan paid like $5 million for his 60th birthday party. I know it's his money, but it's stolen money. The only way that you got all that money, because you got people working for you for slave labor, $7.25, $8, $9, $10. How can a family afford? So here you are, a family of four, and your husband is working a double shift, but you still got to get food stamps. So your family could eat. You still got to go down to community service in the wintertime when it's cold and your light bill is $600-$700 and you only making $7.25 an hour. It's an insult. It is shameful. God made everything, and he made everybody equal in it. God have no respect for a person. If God will do it for you, he'll do it for me too. Those evil people that are accumulating all that money just so they can have their foot around your neck. You can never spend. You can never spend $1 trillion. If you didn't do nothing and everything that you bought, you're going to buy the best. If you going to buy a car and you're a trillionaire, you're going to buy the best car it is. That's going to, in 20 years, going to be worth twice as what it was worth. You're going to buy the best house there is. So 20 years from now, it's going to be twice as much it was worth. When you in the billionaire and the trillionaire, you could take care of every home. Elon Musk could take care of every homeless person. Give them a home. Give them a car. Give them a job. And it won't even hurt him. It won't even hurt him. But he won't have all that power. Well, every time he said bow, you bow. But no matter how much money they offer you, no matter what position they offer you, you got to remember, God is still on the throne. And Jesus is still Lord of Lords, and he's King of Kings. The black and the brown people, there is no way that we're going to accept a dictator or a king. Let's be clear. We know what a dictator and a king would do. He'll build ships and put shackles in the hole of the ship. And he'll go to another country and hunt you down like an animal and put you in chains and take you across the ocean and take away all your freedom, take away the knowledge of your history, take away the knowledge of your family, somebody mother, somebody father, somebody brother or sister. They went out into the woods and they never came home again, and they never found the body. The family died never knowing what happened to their loved one. Nobody can get more evil than that. Nobody could get more vicious than that. Anybody that support that evil like that is against God. It's against Christ. And if they're against God and they're against Christ, they're against me. And they should be against you too. Shame on you. If you not against that kind of action, if you not against that kind of evil, shame on you. Shame. You need to never call up on the name of God and Christ ever again. You shouldn't even set your foot inside of a church. Anybody that condone and support such an evil deed, shame. Shame on you.